Hey kids, this is Ivan's second video of the day, and today I'm just continuing the saga of playing games with kids at the library and how that's going. We're running 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and other games. So this weekend, Saturday was uneventful. Saturday I did not have anybody show up, but I decided I needed to have some one-shots prepared for the eventuality of kids showing up, especially if only one showed up, or one or two, because if you recall, last week I ran into some problems because they went so fast. And so I was thinking of like some kind of like Indiana Jones type things. I actually got some ideas from Eloy and Jose of some ideas of things to run, but at the same time I wanted to run something that wasn't Dungeons and Dragons and wasn't something that was going to take a long time to teach these kids. And as I'm perusing the Dungeon Master's Guide of 5th edition, I come to this spot of alternate rules, and it talks about the idea of exchanging the proficiency bonus for dice. They're using step dice. I think they stole this from Cortex, who probably stole it from somebody else. You know, where if you had a proficiency of +2, then you use a D4 to add to your D20 roll, and a +3 is a D6, etc., all the way up to D12. And so that's kind of interesting. But I decided, hey, let me put together some kind of system like that, like some kind of just real quick system that who knows how well it works or not, but just to use with the kids where it's something where they're kind of familiar with rolling a D20 and maybe roll something else. But I figured, well, if we're going to do some kind of Indiana Jones kind of adventure, well, there ought to be like several different stats or skills that you have, and maybe have the kids choose really fast. What do I want to put what die in? What do I want to put the D4 and the D6 and the D8 and the D10 and the D12 in? So I came up with shooting, fighting, like fisticuffs and like, knives and all that junk. Defense, which would be all the kind of jumping out of the way. Athletics, tinkering, we probably need a better word for that. All the neat stuff where you break into the thing. Talking, because I figured maybe we have some kind of social stuff. Sneaking, and I even put like toughness, like how tough you are. And so maybe like how much damage you can take, or how well you can absorb damage and all that kind of junk. Didn't get to use it, so I kind of threw it to the side. Anyhow, it took way too long to talk about that. But that's some idea that I have for the future that maybe I'll use with the kids, because it's something that I can just say, here, boom, let's go, run. And it's familiar, yet somewhat unfamiliar to them, and see how fun something like that might be. And of course, I've used Cortex before, so I know how that works. Anyhow, let's talk about what really happened today. Well, what happened today was first, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids got to level up. So I helped them level up. I took the average hit points that they give you rather than having the kids roll, because I figured that would just be fast. And it would be better than if they rolled really crappy. And so the 2 rangers had to choose 2 spells each, and they were surprisingly really fast at it. So that was cool. I think one of the kids knew, this is a 3rd ranger. And the other girl, I think she had some experience with that sort of thing. So that helped quite a bit. Everybody else got their hit points. They decided, let's see, what else did they really have to decide? Not too much. And then the young kid finally gets to wild shape into something, but it can't fly, so I can't give him a pseudo dragon or anything like that. So the expert kid that sits on the bench with his brother with the glasses, that reminds me of the kid from Foghorn and Leghorn, said, well, you can wild shape into this, or a direwolf is actually a pretty good shot, or idea. So we used that, and it was on. So today they're deciding what are they going to do, and the adventure actually started pretty slow in the beginning, and it was going pretty slow because they were trying to figure out what to do. They're on this boat with all these goblins they've captured. I guess we've decided that the rogue that couldn't make the other adventure had jumped off the boat, and I decided he was on a buoy, just hanging out on the buoy, and he wasn't able to swim back to the ship when he saw his friends because there was something huge and gigantic in the water, which is really in there. And he decided that's not a good idea, and finally, shouted to his friends, hey, because he showed up this week, and was able to swim over. He didn't get to level up. Out of all the kids, the 13-year-old is just, I think, 75 experience points away from leveling up. So it sucks to be him, because if you really want to get out of that first level squishy area, especially with these kids, because they don't want their characters to die, and so I don't want to go through gyrations to keep them alive, but if I have to, I will, because they're kids, and they showed up to have a good time, so Ivan's going to help them do all that kind of stuff. And so they had to decide, what do we do now? Because they're on the ship, they've learned information that the hobgoblins are eventually going to attack their nation, so they have a responsibility. I didn't tell them this, but one of the kids playing the dwarf was really big with their responsibility. We need to send word back to the kingdom that this is going on. Word back to the palace. In the meantime, they have the ship, which they all want. It's a ship that requires a little bit of repair, but that's about it. And they've also got 3 or 4 goblin prisoners left over. Four goblin prisoners left over. And so there was a bit of this discussion between all of them. What do we do? Do we kill the prisoners? Do we use them for target practice? It's funny. I've tried to tone things way down because I'm playing with kids. and they're more violent than I am. My girlfriend asked, "Well, how was that? What you were like when you were kids?" And I'm like, "Well, kind of, yeah." But I've got some 8-year-olds there. An 8-year-old and 9-year-old. So I'm trying to be, trying to be a little bit, toned down. But they're not toning it down. So it's kind of funny. I was the softie of the entire group. But they did have some arguments about whether it was okay to sell a goblin into slavery and all that sort of stuff. I decided nobody really wanted a goblin slave anyway, to try to avoid that unpleasantness. But they did end up bringing one to town and turning him over to the authorities. They finally figured out half of them were going to stay on the ship, and half of them were going to be going out to town. And so they managed to go out to town. They managed to get rid of offload this prisoner. They managed to talk with the mayor and dispatch word to the kingdom. Okay, so they took care of that responsibility. And now they've got the ship. How do we get it repaired? And one of the things I found that I had to do more than I have to do with adults is to kind of do a little bit of wrangling and a little bit of suggesting. How about you guys go this way? This, it seems like you kind of have a consensus, but not really. But have you considered this and this? Because it's definitely true that adults very often have trouble coming to consensus. Have you had this happen to you before? But with kids, it's even harder, and sometimes they don't take everything into consideration. And I wanted to be fair, and I wanted to, have them think of things like they wanted the hobgoblins to fix the ship. They realized they couldn't fix the ship. But I said, well, gosh, if only you had a whole bunch of money and there were people around that could fix ships. And they found one of them said, like, oh, the people in the village could probably fix ships because that's part of what they do besides fish. And they did find a whole bunch of cash on this goblin ship. So they managed to hire some people to go do that. They wanted to hire a bunch of guards to help them, city guards, because some showed up. And I let them know, these are not real guards. These are people that are kind of like the volunteer force, like the volunteer firemen. Oh, looks like something's going on. Everybody saw this hobgoblin they were carrying with them, so people are like hastily getting their, swords on, and their armor's like kind of disheveled, and they really have no idea how to use this thing anyway. And they let them know that there were also hobgoblins in Old Man Magoo's house. And they were surprised. They were mad. Nobody wanted to go with them. I said, listen, these people just have not signed up for this. So they were a little miffed, It's like, but hey, you were big adventurers. You're the people that are supposed to do that kind of stuff. So they're learning as we go on. So finally, they get some people. They bring them back to the ship, and I decided at this point that goblins weren't going to do anything. The hobgoblins weren't going to mount any sort of attack from the house, but they knew they were there, and the kids knew they were there because one of the hobgoblins signaled them, and was supposed to be giving the all is well signal. But when the young lady that was playing the ranger, or the elf ranger, said, "Does he tell the truth?" I let her use her insight because she was really into getting insight as a proficiency. Because I said it's kind of like when your brother's lying and he's lying. That's what insight's like. She thinks that's the bee's knees. So she managed to roll well, and I realized, no, he's not. They killed him. He's doing something else. So they figured out that he's probably warned all these other goblins. I get back to the ship. They've decided that what they want to do is these workmen, they want them to blow on horns and beat on drums and everything if anybody comes to attack the ship. But nobody probably will. It's just in case something happens. They're really kind of downplaying this. They've also locked away the hobgoblins, the remaining 2 hobgoblins and the goblin in the secret compartments of the ship, because the ship I'm using is in fact the Sea Ghost from the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh U1. That's a ship I've used a million times. There are some secret compartments there. So they told them, be quiet, don't say anything, because otherwise you'll be in big trouble. We'll probably kill you, because these guys are fixing the ship. So don't screw around with us, or you're going to be in big trouble. And besides, these guys will kill you if they hear you, because they'll be freaked out. So they decide now they want to go storm Old Man Magoo's house. And once again, they took them a while to figure out how are we going to do this. There was a lot of back and forth. Who wants to go do this? Who wants to go do that? And they all want to go to Witch Island. Why do they want to go to Witch Island? Because part of the stuff that they found in the captain's cabin was the adventure they were having, or the what's the word I'm looking for? The record of them capturing these other horrific monsters on Witch Island, and the fact that there's not only all kinds of beasts on Witch Island, but it seems to be ruins. And if they were brave people, they could it'd be a land of opportunity, but it's not for the weak-hearted. So, of course, these kids are into going to the Isle of Dread, which I've named Witch Island. Not the actual Isle of Dread. So I dangled that out as a carrot, and they're all about Witch Island. They want to go to Witch Island with this boat. I think this is great. This will be kind of fun. But they need to get the boat repaired. It's going to take about a week. So, at that point, they want to go storm Old Man Magoo's house, which I'm also using the Haunted House from that same module. But they're going to attack it by land. You'd be like the British. If I have any British fans, sorry guys. The Brits are coming. One if by land, two if by sea. So they decide they actually want to go by sea and by land. Okay, well this is going to be interesting. They can go into the cave mouth. They can also go up the stairs and come to the house this way, which one of them does. Few of them go this way. It gets a little bit nuts. They split the party. They split the party big time. I'm like, wow, these kids are really going for it. And so they end up meeting the suits of animated armor that I had placed in there as guards in the top of the house. And now these goblins already know, so they're not all the places they originally were going to be throughout the house. So I was able to have them come in here. They fight the suits of animated armor. In the meantime, 4 of them actually do that. One that came in the side door, 2 of them, or 3 of them that come in the front. Meantime, the other 2 guys, they go down into the cave underneath that old haunted house. So it's not a haunted house in this, but you get the idea. I'm using the same map. And there's about 5 hobgoblins there, and the other rogue manages to sneak over there, see him, and so they decide they're going to attack these guys. They get the drop on them. So there's a pitched battle going underground. There's a pitched battle going upstairs. I can't roll for crap. I'm ready to throw out these Zuccotti dice. But I'm just rolling 2s and 6s and 9s and 5s. I think I actually scored damage on one character once. And they didn't have shabby attack bonuses. They were given +4 and +5s to theirs to hits. So kids have some good armor class. But whoa, I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. I finally scored 8 hit points of damage on the dwarf, which is cool that he got to level up because he only had 9 at first level. But that was later on with the hobgoblins. We'll get to that. But pitched battles go on, and they finally manage to defeat their enemies. They keep one goblin alive, hobgoblin. He tackles him, which is cool. And then as this guy won't tell him anything, he chops off his hand. I'm like, whoa, really, dude? They're brutal kids. Kind of fun, but I'm trying not to smile as it's happening. And in the meantime, the kids in the house have defeated the suits of armor. They hear some banging from upstairs in the attic. I let them just clear out the whole house. We don't go through. I show them what the house looks like, the map, because it's pointless to have them go room by room by room. I pretty much say, looks like a pretty rich guy's house, and if there was McDonald's, there'd be McDonald's wrappers all around there. It's not McDonald's, it's other stuff, because these hobgoblins have been messy. But they find a map. They're able to use insight rolls once again to figure out that the hobgoblins are actually been tracking where these beasts are. They're trying to capture them. So there's maps, little parts of sightings, and other little parts of where they've looked already, and the fact that they know that a couple of them are dead, but they know there's 3 actually out there. And so it's kind of neat. The kids wanted to keep the map, and they're interested in that whole thing, but they're more interested in which island. So they might just leave these commoners to themselves in the land of Kelp with these 3 monsters and not help them out with it. Brutal. But at this point, they hear the blare of horns and everything, and of course, the poor fellows on the boat, these workmen, have sighted three dinghies full of goblins heading towards their boat, and there's no way our party can get there in time. So by the time they get up there, the hobgoblins have them all, and they've got knives to their throats and that sort of thing, and we're going to start killing prisoners, and they shoot. And one of them gets really lucky and beans the guy in the head and kills the first guy. But then there's another pitched battle, so they start to board the ship, and they start to shoot arrows at him, and there's 12 hobgoblins, and things are going. If I wasn't rolling so lousy, these kids would have been in big trouble, but I just rolled terrible. And they rolled fairly well. And once again, I had to kind of coach them a little bit. The kid that playing the druid figured out that he could spray somebody with his poison, and that was cool. He managed to poison another hobgoblin that way. He did wild shape into a dire wolf back in the house and was ineffective. And of course, they didn't think to take short rests, but so he can't do it again for a while. They're learning all this resource management, and they're still learning. I have to coach them quite a bit of what do you need to add here, as far as their proficiency bonus and their strength or dexterity. And I wrote it down on some of the sheets for the kids and sent it to them. But the other ones, I encourage them to do that next to their weapons. We're going to have to talk a little bit more about this. But I think, through repetition and what have you, I'm getting them to learn how to actually play the game in terms of what they need to do mechanically. The little extra junk that they can do, they're getting down pretty well. In fact, they're reading a lot about that. They know, I can do this and I can do that and I have this special power. It's the fundamentals that's kind of blowing them. And I talked about that in the Roll20 video. I don't want to go back there. But you get the idea. I think they'll be fine. But it's once again, it's taking all these kind of teachable moments or kind of repetition to make sure they're actually doing that. And saying things like, as this dragonborn kid, gets on the top and it's you and a hobgoblin. He's like, well, I'm going to hit this with my sword. I'm like, you're standing right in front of the hobgoblin. You're a dragonborn. What do you do? And he's like, oh yeah, I breathe fire on him. And so that was fun. He gets to roast this guy. He doesn't kill him because the hobgoblin saved. And our young lady who likes to climb up things and jump on people is climbing up the mast, and the hobgoblin throws an axe at her, and she throws it back. And we had to end right there. There's 3 hobgoblins still alive in the ship. And at that very moment, decided to pull a fast one on them. This is what would happen. And the door bursts open, and Snurk, the little goblin, who they really wanted to keep as like a servant and whatnot, because he's scared to death of him, and has been singing like a canary. Their intimidation rolls work great and everything. He pops through the door, and I tell him, you can tell that what this goblin and these other 2 hobgoblins thought is that there's a fight going on between these workmen and their backup. And clearly, the other hobgoblins should be able to just decimate them. And there's just a bunch of workmen that don't know. The workmen had, like, I think crowbars and hammers, and they just dropped them instantly when they saw the hobgoblins initially. And they burst through the door, and Snark says, we're here to help you. Oh, no. And so the kids got quite a kick out of that, as this goblin has betrayed them. But now they're probably going to kill poor Snurk and their friends. And so we left it at that. So because I wanted to leave things with them at kind of like these cliffhanger moments as much as possible. And so it was a fun session. We played the entire 2 hours. I think we leveled them up for about 10, maybe 15 minutes maximum, if that. They were really fast. That was great. I tried to do as much work ahead of time. But it was a fun session. It was really enjoyable. I'm wondering how long I'm going to keep this Saturday session open. I'll do it as long as the guy wants if he's going to pay me, because I think it's it'd be cool to keep it open for other kids from that town to join the RPG club or whatever. But it was a really fun session. I think they were mostly pretty engaged. And it's funny to see who is there just for combat and who is there to make decisions and who wants to do really cool things. And I'm starting to get more of a feel of that. And once again, I did not give out inspiration, and I should have. And I was kind of kicking myself at the end of the session. So I have to put a little sign like right underneath my iPad here, inspiration, and start to give that out to them to let them use it. And there were some moments where they had to do things at disadvantage. And I let them know flat out. One kid wanted to pick up throw 3 knives from the kitchen at somebody. I said, go ahead, that's going to be a disadvantage. And he decided to do it, and he missed horribly. But I let him do it. There are situations that cause disadvantage. I actually had a few of them for him. And sometimes they decide, no, I don't want to do that. And sometimes they decide to roll with disadvantage and see how that went. So overall, it was a fun session. And I'm really kind of, I wanted to let them kind of drive, but I have had to kind of give them a little bit of steering here and there, more like, have you considered this? Have you considered that? And the carrot, fortunately, the carrot of which island was big enough for them that they really want to go over there. And that should be a lot of fun because we can get away from, if they want to, it doesn't seem like, intrigue with the Goblin Empire is going to be their big thing. And I had plenty of other things planned, but which island seemed like it might be a real hoot. So it looks like we're going to go into the Isle of Dread and doing some pretty fun stuff. And I got to check their XP to see if these guys leveled up again to 3rd level, which I don't think they quite did, but it would be helpful. I know the other guy is going to level up to 2nd level. And I'm just letting them level up as fast as they can right now because they are kind of squishy. And it seems you got to get to about 3rd, maybe 4th level here before you're really out of danger, like big danger, because still, a couple good hits from something. There's some monsters. I've looked through this book, and I'll talk about that in the actual series about 5e. There's some creatures out there that can just do a number on you really fast and put you in that, that situation where you're either making death saving throws or they've actually done enough damage to you that they've, done more than your maximum hit points all at once. Lucky roll, could happen. Trust me, I know all about that. All right, kids, talk to you later. But it has been fun.